Session here, but I have a little bit of a question, I suppose, and that is picking the oldest person, probably pretty close to all of you, to do a talk on technology is kind of an interesting choice, but it gave me a good lead into something, so let's see. My topic is leading change with technology in wellness. So it's a big topic. There's a lot of coverage and a lot of scope that we can go through, but I'm going to try and give you some overviews of how we got to where we are with the Lanzerhof at the Arts Club. I'm going to start with things that have happened in my lifetime. 1963 is the year. I was just born. I won't tell you how long before, but it is in my lifetime. This picture is actually a picture of a time when Mr. John Glenn went into space. And this is what computers looked like. The amount of computer processing in that room is available today in here. And the reason why I use that illustration is it really signifies change on such a massive scale in the space of my lifetime. And if we look at your lifetime going forward and remaining as an refreshed and competent as an industry, we have to remain relevant to our consumers. And I think these are really key points. Our industry also started a number of years ago, and this may make some of you smile, but this is Greyshot Spa, my other hat. I wear two hats in this country under Lanzerhof rule. Greyshot was actually built in the 1960s as a health retreat, and it offered a lot of health-related services. You can see the old gym. The equipment is not quite the techno-gym of today, but it does give you some insights. But it shows you the kind of offer that has been consistent in the marketplace for over 50 years. Have we changed that much since then? Good question. You can answer that. Cool in more ways than one with the cryotherapy, which is one of our new technologies. Now, how does we as an industry get from where the first sort of slide and the older vision of what we do to what the potential is today that's just been launched at Lanzerhof at the Arts Club? Essentially, the process that we all go through is the same thing. And I think this slide is really set out to map out that process. And then I'll take you through a little bit more into the technology. You need to start with a big idea. Big ideas are hard to find. Health apps is one area which there's a tremendous amount of interest in at the moment, but there are currently 40,000 health apps on the market. It is a completely crowded territory, and it's one that's going to have to continue to grow and at the same time change and evolve. You need to build a coalition. You need enough people from enough parts of industries to come together to actually make something work. You have to have a very strategic vision, and you will need an army of people to enlist to help you do things, whatever it is. In order for action to go forward, you really need to very often have people in place, and sometimes those are people in high positions, that can help you remove barriers. An example of one barrier that we had was power. UKPN did not have enough capacity in Mayfair in order to provide us with the power that we needed to run that building. Now, that took some challenges, it took some legal fees, and it took a tremendous amount of patience and a lot of nail biting, I can tell you, till we knew that we could get the power. And in the end, our owners built a power substation in the building ourselves. So we went down the route as many ways as we could in order to solve a problem, because we felt the big idea was a strong idea and we should stick with it. You have to generate short-term wins and celebrate those. And then I think you have to sustain your acceleration. Once things start to get going, it's easy. If things are a little bit slow burn initially, it's easy for people to get discouraged. You've got to keep that sustained, consistent movement forward. So that's the theory part out of the way. Our big idea was to be London's first medical gym. We really focused on being a bespoke healthcare facility which offered the best of diagnosis and at the same time offered people a really strong, luxurious workout environment and all of the support services that go with the clinic. If you were an elite athlete in the world today, it would be very difficult to find places under one roof where you would have all of those facilities available and supporting you. Most people join a gym today and they end up with an injury. And this is all focused on prevention. It's a totally different business model. And it's really looking at an aging population where we know that globally, I think over 50s are going to double over the next 20 to 30 years. And we're in a situation where we know people are taking greater advantage, greater responsibility for their health. And we felt that we had a really good opportunity to move into a space. This is a medically run facility. It's what we call a medical approach to holistic health and well-being. So it's a really targeted message that we're giving. Now, what does it look like? Well, it looks like 6 floors. And trying to describe it to ourselves, we have one of our marketing team is actually quite clever in drawing little pictures. And we were trying to describe something amongst the team as to how it would all fit together with the architects and all the flows and everything that we wanted to have happen. And he did a little hand sketch, which has become one of our iconic features in our brochure and how we can show people and make something quite complex but accessible. So you can see down here on the lowest floor, we have an MRI, we have a spine lab, and we have a movement lab and the cryo chamber. So it's very focused on a lot of the heavy technology. Then on the main ground floor, we have a reception and a members lounge. So this is a members only space. However, the other services are available to non-members, except for the gym, which is members only again. And then we have dressing rooms, men's and ladies, and then a studio where you saw the Pilates taking place, doctors and physio consulting rooms, and then treatment rooms, the lab infusion. So all 6 floors are completely allocated to guest care. These 2, essentially, except for the reception, are members only, and then the rest is open. The types of technology that we have inside that building include the MRI, so imaging, AI, artificial intelligence, so machine learning tools within the gym equipment that actually inform the fitness instructors what people are doing, whether they're working the full range of motion, whether they're struggling at a certain point, and it gives them a lot better feedback so they can guide people on a very narrow path of what's appropriate for them individually. We have VR. Virtual reality has been something which has come into the marketplace in sort of fun and entertainment ways, but actually the University of Kent has done a study recently showing VR is really good for engagement, for pain management. People are distracted, they're not as aware of the pain that they may be facing, and they can kind of push through sometimes and get better results. Sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on here for just a second. The sense of entertainment is actually really, really valuable. We have, I won't go through all of these because it's a very long list and the presentation will be available after, but we have biomechanics, which you saw the girl running on the treadmill, where you can see the force, the lift time, the loading time, all those things on in terms of the assessment of gait, etc. We have stem cell possibility. We're doing PRP injections. So if somebody does have a joint problem, our medical director is an orthopedic trauma surgeon, and he's able to do specific treatments to people's in a regenerative capacity. Microbiome, we do a lot with microbiome testing, nutrition, and supporting the body into a much better healthy state of affairs, and addressing a lot of things that are inflammation responses. The space training technology is a lot to do with core stability. Astronauts fly around a lot, and they need to be really, really strong in order to withstand that. And there's some great tools on the market now that can assess your core stability, but also be training tools. So it's not just about assessment, it's actually turning those metrics and those scores into a way that we can help people to learn. And then, of course, we've got all of the things that you can do with wearables, oxygen therapies, the adaptive fitness training, and we'll shortly be introducing sleep tech as well. This is all in a spa-like environment. It's all in an ambiance which is very friendly, very zen. It's got that very elegant, quiet backdrop to your experience. The fundamentals of linking those 6 floors and all of the different disciplines that go forward in that business mean that there's a convergence of different modalities. There are crossover points between those. And the cultural mindset of different professionals is really interesting. And I hadn't realized till we were midway through the project that we were bringing together the culture of hospitality, the culture of clubs, running membership clubs, the culture of medicine, doctors and how they think, together with fitness, leisure, and then the spa, wellness, all of that coming together. You get some very different thinking and some very different ideas. Our systems architecture had to handle the amount of precise data that we had, and I'm going to show you a later slide which will show you some of the linkages in an early little diagram that we did trying to figure things out. And we had to have process flows that really matched the experience. So the guest who came through the building and had all these disparate things actually had an end result that brought it all together for them, and the communication that went along with that was really important. There's always the human element. People don't like to do certain things. They don't want to walk upstairs, or they don't want to do whatever. So there's aspects to that. And then ultimately the systems integration. When you have data from an MRI, from the biometrics, from the fitness, and from everything else, and you bring it into a file, we then move into data security, huge elements around medical privacy, and removing, obviously it's far more precise and detailed than just a simple GDPR. I know none of us knows, we all know GDPR is not simple, but if you add a medical layer to that, it's a completely different game again. Whereas technology adds clarity, it enables us to collaborate across the 6 floors and different modalities, and with a very conscious intent, in other words, looking after each person in a very bespoke medical care way. It also brings complexity, confusion, and a lot of challenges. None of us are are IT experts, and IT experts are not experts in any one discipline, and they had the role of bringing all of these things together and trying to make sense of it and help us through that process. And I have to say, we have an amazing IT team in Germany, and we really we're very blessed to have some great support from them. I put 3, but there were actually 4 challenges. Power being number 1, and the one that was the most, there was so much riding on it. When you buy an MRI, it's an expensive piece of kit, and you'd like to know that when it arrives, that you will actually have power for it. So that was a very big stress moment for us. The merging of professional cultures was a really big challenge initially, and even to this day going forward operationally. How a doctor thinks, how a fitness instructor thinks, all these things are very different. And then communicating externally, some pretty pioneering ideas. A lot of people can't get their heads around what we're doing. Well, is it a membership club, or is it a gym, or is it a clinic? It's all of those things, but done in a very unique way. And then, of course, the IT and technology integrations. This is the map that I made reference to, and this shows how we had to have our membership system talking potentially to our Technogym gym equipment. We also have, I didn't mention along the way, but we have in the audience someone from SPAx, which is a 3D body scanner. And so that's another level of data where you're getting a 3D body scan of someone, and then you're able to produce a file that has tremendous amounts of data about someone and circumference, it's all sorts of things. And that links into potentially the medical clinic, but it also ties into fitness. You know, are people balanced? Are they walking correctly? Do they have the right, do they have a lot of visceral fat around the middle of the body, etc.? So these are all things that there's relevancies of information across all these different things. We had, telemedicine. We've got the medical records that need to be completely isolated. Then we have the security access systems to the building that has to link into the membership so we know who's doing what. Everything in terms of payment systems has to come through the accounting software. Retail, we were looking at potentially having a concierge facility, a butler service, which we did do, but not on here necessarily. And it gets very, very, very complicated. This is a very early slide, and it's just a little indication to give you something. It ended up looking more like a spaghetti junction by the time we were finished, but because you need to work out at each one of these points, what information are you sharing and what are you not sharing? Because it's really, really important. Going back to John, our lovely marketing guy, taking this complex idea of lots of different technologies and making it accessible. Before we were open, we had nothing we could show people. So we wanted to move into a space where we could show people equipment and it wouldn't be scary. It wouldn't be technology that would put them off. So it really takes them and it maps through the whole journey of what we do and what would be a benefit to the individual coming into us. The spine lab is another thing. It looks a little bit out of this world, but there's a gamification element in that. When you're in the unit, this piece here has a gaming aspect to it. So you are working and focusing on something very specific to keep yourself in balance with the unit. And this actually tips in all different directions, and it rotates as it tips sometimes. So you are really testing your inner core, and it's really quite unique. There are all sorts of sensors built into the body pads around here. So the movement lab you've seen on the video as well. Cryotherapy, minus 110 degrees, maximum 3 minutes. We tend to start with 1 minute, and it is medically supervised. So we're not just letting anybody go in there. There's a good health check before, etc. The technology for the guest or the patient is really supporting behavior change. So these are the reasons why we looked at some of these technologies. It's about engagement. It's about creating an immersive experience. So when they're there, they're completely absorbed in it. There's an element of entertainment, absolutely. Assessment. Probably the key reason for us is precision. The amount of information we can get and we can help people with in a precision-based biomechanics lab is completely different to what a gym instructor will sort of look at someone and decide that, yeah, okay, you can almost do that range of motion or you can do 70%. It's a little bit harder, whereas with these types of pieces of equipment, we get really detailed information. We can do time tracking, so we can see results over time, and we're able to monitor and support people really through a journey that hopefully is getting more and more personalized to their needs along the way. From an employee perspective, we also use a lot of technologies, and they helped us to support behavior change. We want to encourage good behaviors. We manage all of our online training through an app that helps us keep track of everything. all our policy updates, because we're a medical facility, we need to make sure those policies are understood and signed for by everybody. And we do all the simple basic stuff like time tracking and rosters and building security, etc. There's also technology that's new that's used in everything from the yoga mats and the sports clothing and wearables being put into fabrics. There's some areas we're looking at that are getting really exciting going forward. We have some great water quality systems, some very fancy toilets if you're interested in that. And obviously building efficiencies with the building management systems. We're living in a time right now where change is happening faster than ever before. The technology is exploding the realm of possibilities for us. The complexity is therefore increasing. And there are a lot of structural changes in the marketplace that are making people forcing new ideas and sometimes forcing ideas out of business. And I think a lot of societies, not just here in the UK, but around many parts of the world, they're polarizing around different social issues, which is causing complexity as well. The way we receive information and the volume of information that we're receiving is greater than ever before. There are more channels, there are more ways, there's more information coming at us, and it's exhausting for most people, frankly. And what we want to do, the next 2 points I want to make, just in working towards the close here, is the lines between the human and humanness and the human interface are blurring. And you'll see a couple of slides that will show you that. And the consideration of what it is to be human is something to really consider. The second point is technology impacts our lives both positively and negatively. And we should not lose sight of that. This is a picture from something I saw online, which looks at a system called HiView, or HiView. And it is a facial recognition software, and companies like Unilever are using this, and they are interviewing using video interviews and assessing people using AI, and they determine whether or not that candidate is appropriate for the job or not. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel it's a little creepy. Personally, I think it's going to create more of the same. You know, we've seen that with the city traders, where they tried to get more people like the city traders, and then the behavior of the city traders has got worse and worse. But it's something to keep in mind. The other thing is, it's possible today with transdermal or bio-integrated devices to put things in your skin. And they can be temporary in a tattoo sort of way that comes off, or they can be embedded. A friend of mine was in the US recently, and the guy walked up to the cash wearing short-sleeve t-shirt, shorts, nothing in his hands. He picked up some stuff from the 7-Eleven, put it on the counter, and went like this. He paid with something in his wrist that was embedded. And my friend just went, "What did you just do?" And, you know, we need to think about these things, because that's not so far down the line for us. And I think, you know, this little thing here is something that can be used to sense EEGs, ECGs. I mean, there are all kinds of measurements that are possible, and these are things that we can be using potentially to test the validity of a great massage or some other service that we're offering. But I think it's got a creepy side to it as well, we should be aware of. Electromagnetic hypersensitivity is something that has now been given an official code under an official medical recognition. It can be an intolerance, or it can be a sensitivity. It can be insomnia, headaches, nausea, tinnitus, dizziness, mood, irritability, infertility. It can affect your mitochondrial function, which means the energy cell within the energy producer within your cells. It very much affects gut microbiome. There's quite a lot of research being done on that. And 5G is here. 5G is going to spread it much more pervasively across the whole environment. And I think we need to be aware that it has been banned in schools in some countries. And I think we are offering environments where You can argue you should take it out, you can put it in. There are lots of ways to look at it. I know that, I believe Lanzerhof in one of the resorts didn't put in any Wi-Fi or anything, and it was so impactful on the guests that they ended up having to add it back in but you have the option, you can switch it off if you want. But I do think it's something to be aware of going forward, that it will have an impact on health in general, people's feeling of well-being, and then how people are. In closing, I just want to say you really need to know the business you are in and focus. Focus has got to be one of the most important things. Having just done a pre-opening, there's so much cool stuff out there. It's really exciting to get carried away and go in all directions at the same time. But at the same time as you must focus, don't lose sight of seizing those unexpected opportunities. In our case, we think John's just little drawing was perfect for us, that gave us the insight to make something accessible. It gave us the inroad, and we really wanted to recognize him for that. We should all be responsible with technology, and you have to keep a sense of urgency alive. No industry will do well when everybody gets complacent. Thank you very much.